Welcome to Baseball Biz on Deck. This is Mark Carpet, and today, as always, I'm here with Mr. Matt Germain. Usually we talk with Matt mostly about Rays, but gosh, doggone, Matt, there's been plenty else to talk about as this postseason has progressed.
It's been a fun time. There's a lot of good stories out there, and the series are, I want to say, boring and fun at the same time. A lot of them short, but good stories anyhow.
Oh, brother, I tell you, what was kind of interesting to me, last time we talked, you said, Mark, I really think we need like a 5-game, not so much a wild card. We need to get rid of the wild card altogether and have more teams play. I said, that makes sense because, but we have 3 games. That's better than one wild card game. But it really didn't make a damn bit of difference this time, did it? Whether you were playing 1 wild card or 3, because all of them got swept in 2 games.
Yeah, but I think the downtime was a lot more minimal than it could have been for the teams that were waiting with the buys. But you still got to see them get walloped. I think 3 of the 4 games, the team that was waiting on the bye week ended up losing. So kind of proves the point that sitting isn't good for baseball, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean the Rangers. Let's see, they played away to play the wild card against the Rays. Mm-hmm. And now they've been at Camden Yard for 2 games. They've taken both of those. And as you're saying, the bad team was the Orioles in that case. Yeah. Oh, gosh. And then if you look at what happened earlier this week with the Dodgers, Clayton Kershaw, man, Mr. Hall of Fame walking out there on the mound.
It was rough to watch. Like, it's one of those painful, like you're just cringing the whole time that you're watching it and hoping he can get out of it somehow. Because nobody wants to see, Hall of Famers get clobbered at the end of their careers or at any point, really. Like, you want it to be competitive. Those are the fun, games to watch. So, I mean, you got to give it to the D-backs, though. They built the lineup and the roster in a certain way that attacked him perfectly. So it was one of those nights where you start wondering about next season, though, for Clayton.
To see that all happen in the first inning, I mean, faced all night, the entire lineup, and that include 2 former Rays, by the way. That's Tommy Pham and Evan Longoria. But the pain of that was almost as much to me when I was watching the Orioles. Actually, it was more because I saw it all kind of fall at Kershaw's feet. And what happened with the Orioles and Rangers was a little bit more varied.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little bit more, I don't know, roster depth and attacking the right person at the right time, I think. So it ended up being an interesting game to watch in the end. But I'm really excited about what the D-backs have to offer overall. I think they're very, I don't want to say they're a lot like a young version of the Texas Rangers, but there's so much limelight on the West Coast, on the Padres and the Dodgers and the Giants. You almost forget the D-backs exist over on the West Side a lot of times. And I find that, they've been working through this process for a long time, trying to build this competitive group. They might have one of the deepest, cores of outfielders through their system and on their team that I've seen in a long time. So it's impressive to see where they are. As long as they keep the pitching going, they're going to be hard to stop. I'm not going to say they're going to win the World Series this year, but they're going to be hard to stop. And they're going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, in many ways, I think of them sort of like the Rays as a team that just people either forget or they're not going to give any chance whatsoever of them doing anything. And earlier this week when they played the Dodgers, they made that very clear to everyone. We are here to fight for that. We are here to go for the, go for the World Series, baby. You're thinking, let's see, how's it going with the Braves? Let's see. Written down here. Oh, yeah. The Phillies and the Braves. So right now, the Phillies have got 1 game at Atlanta, right?
Yep. And they ended up losing to the Phillies. They're losing right now again, 1-0. But they again, if you're sitting, you're susceptible to going through slumps when you come back, right?
Yeah.
I think like I said to you before, like the pitching on the Braves side has really taken the hit with Charlie Morton not being there, Carl Wright not being there. There's a lot to a lot of youth that can kind of be volatile in the playoffs. So I don't want to say you saw this coming with the Phillies, but the Phillies are a tough team in the playoffs. They're very hype centric, and once they get that hype going, they're the rah tends to overtake the game, and I think the Braves, they're in hard shape right now. We'll see.
It was so I enjoyed, I guess that's the right word, watching the Twins and Astros play the other day. I mean, in many ways, I still got that whole gut feeling every time I hear the name Astros going back to before 2020 and the banging of the drum. But the thing of it is, so who am I going to pull for? Am I going to pull for Carlos Correa with the Twins? Jeez and knees. But man, oh man, I think he got some boost when he was there. He turned all that into gold as far as what he was hitting, man.
Yeah, what I will say for Carlos, like you gotta give it to the guy for this. Okay, so he went from leaving the Twins to going to the Mets and getting signed on there, and then them turning their back on him. He was very classy about it. Said, "Okay, I'm going to go back to the table." Sign with the Giants, same deal, and they ended up turning their back on him. Can't remember which order it happened, but both those two teams anyway. And then he had to go back like a man and go back to the Twins and say, "Hey, I still want to go back." And he went back. And in between there, at some point, there was the Padres that made him a significant offer, and apparently a few other teams that were also pretty high. But you got to give it to him for fighting through that and still be classy enough to actually be welcomed back into the Twins. And then also fighting through this season. He's not a healthy guy. He's got a lot of issues, a lot of nagging this, nagging that, and he's playing at his best in the playoffs. And I tip my hat to him. Those are the kinds of players you can't understate, like in terms of their impact on the team, because everybody sees how they're comporting themselves and how, and that's where true leadership comes in. I would say Byron Buxton on the Twins, stepping aside, letting Michael Taylor actually take over center field. That's another leadership issue. The Twins have gotten a lot of things right this year, and they've banked a lot of things on a lot of key places, and they got buy-in from their players. Trading your best hitter for a pitcher like Pablo Lopez is not easy to do. That's a big gutsy move that they made. But they believed in their process, and they were right. Pablo Lopez was key to winning that game. So, yeah.
He was very instrumental in that. And when you talk about that trade, you're talking about what Luis Ariz with the Marlins, right?
That's right.
The reason I bring that up is because I was talking with Lou Schiffer. I was texting with him this morning. He's big Marlins fan. And I said, "Hey, how's it working out for you?" He said, "You know what? I personally hadn't followed that close." He says, "I think he said he was 0 for 4 as far as postseason, the last 4 years."
Yeah, I don't blame him. I'm very close to that too.
Oh my, it's sad stuff. I don't know, man. I had a whole different view of what was going to happen. Of course, I was pulling for the Rays, expect the Rays. Rangers, they're a strong team, so it didn't completely blow my mind that they won at the Tropicana, but I didn't expect them to take 2 at the Trop.
Short series. This is why the argument is like baseball is a long series kind of game. It's not a short series game.
Yeah.
If you want to see the true talent of a team, you've got to give them that chance to show it. So I don't know. That's why I'm all for having maybe a few less games in the regular season and more playoff games, more, meaningful games.
Well, I was with you on that. You talked about that last time out. I was just like, first, I'm like, less games. Well, I'm a less games guy anyway, just because of all the injuries that are out there. But to go ahead and go into the postseason, there has to be some way to lessen the impact on these young men. Because let's face it, let's go back to the Rays for a minute. Jeez. I mean, there's always things about Kevin Cash you can argue about. I can argue about. But he lost the team. Having Siri on the team in the wild card was ridiculous. That poor man, he's injured beyond belief. He'd done some BP. He hadn't even done any kind of simulated game with anybody, to my knowledge. And they put him out there. And they expect Siri from 2 or 3 months earlier. And it wasn't going to happen.
I don't get me going, Mark. The ridiculousness of that, the two things, right? Like the Pete Fairbanks 2-inning in the game against the Orioles, and sitting Josh Lowe, who'd been one of your hottest hitters. Teams hated him. Didn't matter if he was facing a lefty or a righty. He was your best hitter in September, and you were going to sit him. Really? Like it doesn't make any sense on any platform whatsoever. And this is where the whole, I don't know if it's a groupthink thing in the Rays or if somebody is overstepping their bounds, but it's a dumb, stupid move. And that's not Rays like. It isn't. Like there's no analytics in the world that you can show me that says, hey, the player with the broken hand that's been sitting for a week is better than the hottest hitter for September. There's no analytics that's going to show you that.
No.
So
No.
I don't. Yeah, you got me going.
Sorry, dude. I mean, I saw you posted about that, and
Yeah.
it's funnier because earlier this year, I can't remember who was on the show. It wasn't you, but somebody said, "Yeah, I think you'll have cash here for another manager of the year." And I thought, I don't know, but I know what it was. It was with the Orioles guy. So he's Nate Anderson from Full Count Chaos. And I said, no, Nate. I said, you know what? Brandon Hyde actually looks pretty good to me for a manager of the year. And
I would agree. I think there's very few times when the Rays have been playing them that I've been thinking, oh, that's an odd move or anything like that. I think he did push his players to the limits in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
I will say that. Like, remember way back when the Yankees had some managers that were blamed for this, where they would basically burn their relievers at both ends. Like they would just go through them. Like Proctor's one I can remember. There's a bunch of them that ended up pointing the finger at the managers later on when they were, outside of the organization and said, the reason I'm not playing anymore is because I was overused and like for a long period of time. I think Brendan Hyde's kind of going that route especially with the relieving. Doesn't really have a choice, right? Because of the success they've had and wanting to earn certain things. So I get it. But yes, I agree. The managing wise, he's been one of the top ones. Torey Lovello's another one that I would give, a really good rapport on. But yeah, Kevin Cash, 90%, maybe to 95% of the decisions he makes valid, makes sense, no problem. But it's the 5%, and they generally tend to be at the end of the season when everything gets relaxed all of a sudden for whatever reason. They're happy with their standings. They think all the work's been done. He tells everybody relax. It's not the way to go into the playoffs. No. You do not have success going into the playoffs relaxed. That never happens, ever. If you're relaxed going into the playoffs, you've got the wrong mentality and you need to change jobs.
It's funny. I had the honor to meet Lou Piniella this week, to throw something crazy in here in the middle of everything else. And while I was there, someone else was interviewing him. And one thing that came up 2 or 3 times during the conversation, I heard him say, he said, winning is everything. It's everything when you're there. And I thought, yeah, that he said it with such ferocity that I thought, yes, that's the attitude you have to have. That's what you have to do to get there. And I thought, Lou, we'll bring you back.
Well, you know what? And it mystifies me for this reason, okay? Because I know I've been kind of examining the Rays, is the way I would call it, for a long time now. And one of the things they instill through the organization, and it's been getting more and more and more consistent over time, is winning throughout, whether it's at the beginning of the season or end of the season, at the lower end of the minors, upper end of the minors, at the major league level. So if it's that way all the way through, from the time those players are drafted or signed until they get to the major league level, and they're told winning is everything, like you just said, and that is the focus of the organization so that they're building winners, why at the MLB level for the last week of the season or two do you say winning doesn't matter all of a sudden? Why does that happen? How does that even become okay? I don't understand.
It's like we get to go on vacation after the regular season, boys and girls. Let's go out and all have fun, and then we'll get participation trophies at the end of the day. Good Lord. I mean, that's what it felt like. It's like, oh, I have to reward the guys who have been working so hard all year long. And, I'm not going to bring Junior out for all the time. I'm going to set Josh down for a while and set the injured guy out and send the injured guy out.
Right. My argument for that would be do it earlier. Do it the first week of August. Do it the second week of August. Do it in end of June. Like, pick a point of time, like maybe 5 weeks before the playoffs, where you say no more days off. It's pedal to the metal, boys. We're going in. Like, this is it. This is the drawing line, and we're going with the hottest guys in the playoffs. If you want to be on the playoff roster, be one of the hottest guys. And if you're not, you're going to be off the roster. End of story. And that's the way I would run it. And honestly, I think they'd have more success with it that way.
Well, I think the younger ones were hungry enough that they wanted to be in the postseason. Mm-hmm. But you and I both saw some performances from Margot and Basabi toward the end of the season that just didn't feel as strong as they had been in the past. I just think the team was tired, to be honest with you, man. I just think they were
like, yeah, you're right.
Well, commiserate about that as long as we want. Here's one thing this is weird because I'm going to bring it up to say that I'm not going to talk about it. And that is all the bad vibe that people want to throw at the fans at the Trop. And go ahead, because that means you have nothing to talk about to analyze the game itself. So I'll just leave it there. Oh, Lord.
Nobody did anybody any favors. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. It's announcing is such a weird game anyway. And I keep hoping to see young blood come up in this.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to talk about for the playoffs that the Rays were part of, the announcing, honestly, something needs to be done. It's disrespectful to the game. It's gotten to that point where it's so atrocious. I need to turn the volume off and I put on the radio, and I can't even watch with the volume on because the ignorance towards the teams that are actually playing the game is so obvious. People are talking about people that are not even on the right teams, like at the wrong times. And I'm like, what are you doing? And it doesn't go, the flow of the game gets completely changed because they're focusing on such basic and rudimentary things that nobody, can relate to it or it's just, it's like teaching somebody. It's like as if they're trying to teach the new fan the game when they get there in the playoffs. Like as if it's the first time a person is going to watch a baseball game is in the playoffs. And so they're teaching it like as if they were elementary school students, right? It's just annoying. So anyway, that's my last thought on the playoffs.
Good. We'll bury it with that, but I'm with you there too. I really believe we should be allowed to have our regional sports network guys there. I mean, it's they're who we're familiar with. We're the ones that followed them through the first 162 games, and unless they're doing something horrendous, we should be able to have them still there. Oh man! Hey, did I tell you what? I started working with this baseball classic.
Yeah, you were saying.
Yeah, down in Sarasota. Actually, it's the All American Professional Girls Baseball Classic. And, we're talking with Sousa Pay. She's one of the ladies who played with the Rockford Peaches, man. It's looking at a league of their own. So I know Sue is she's 89. There's some that are in their 90s. They're not going to be taking the field. But they're going to have teams with the names of the different Rockford Peaches, the South Bend Blue Sox, and some other ones. So it should be a lot of fun. So I needed something to get out of the funk of the regular season. So I saw that they were doing that, and I'm jumping right in to try to help them out. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm excited about it.
Yeah, good luck with that, and hopefully they get some momentum going for getting girls baseball kind of more established across the United States. Anyway, I'd love to see a professional women's league kind of take off. If you have it for so many other sports, I don't see why baseball would be any different.
Now, you all have kept it up there in Canada, haven't you? Because I was looking at some of the women that are going to be playing, and there's Canada, Australia, Japan, but it seems like there's some organizations I know already in Canada who've been having games with women playing in baseball in regular leagues.
Right, and it's becoming more prominent now, I think, because of the whole movement of not focusing so much on softball and making it more about the hardball, which I think is the key, right? Because Canada has a really strong softball kind of standing and group and history, really, in the Olympics and everything else. So I think it wouldn't be much of a change. It just has to be, are people really going to play softball and baseball, or are they going to have to pick one or the other? And then do you still have the numbers being strong enough? I can tell you where I live. It's in the western province of Nova Scotia. In the summer, the two sports that you basically see in all, you know, what the families take part in is soccer and baseball. And those are the two big sports in our side of the province. And I think it's the same in a lot of different areas of Canada. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if they had enough numbers to make a go of it, to be honest.
So in Canada, you're seeing that they have the women leagues. I mean, you're saying baseball and soccer, but wow.
Mostly mixed leagues up until a certain age. So like my daughter has a friend who's really high in the province, and she plays on the boys teams, and she travels with them and plays alongside them. And she's 14 now. So she's up to that level and she's still with the boys. So it's not, separated leagues, but you do have the option. So she plays for both.
Oh, wow.
It actually helps her actually achieve more. So yeah, I would say it's very up and coming, and kind of it's got deeper roots than people know, I think. And now that there's a lot of movement in terms of making women's professional leagues at a same standing as men's professional leagues, I think that's the next jump you're going to see. So I'm really happy to see women step up and demand these changes be made. I don't know how much you know about this, but the women's soccer national team had to fight, basically go on strike, essentially, and not play in certain tournaments, or threaten to not play. Eventually, I think they played in most of them, but they want equal pay to what the men are getting, and their equal sponsorship money and all that kind of stuff. And they're fighting hard for it. Same thing on the hockey side. They've had to fight for a lot of things. So it's great to see. I commend them for it, and I say, go get them, like, by all means. I wish women were as excited about women's sports as I am when I watch any sport. You know what I mean? Like, why not? Like, it doesn't make any sense not to.
Well, being a dad of young girls, I always wanted them to be able to do whatever they wanted to. Kind of go back to the moment, though, what you were saying about soccer. I remember that. And I kept thinking, I was hearing numbers as far as the amount of revenue that was being generated with women's soccer. It's like, in many cases, they were generating more than the men, but the pay wasn't the same. Or it should have been at least commensurate with what they were achieving. And I'm glad that page has been turned. But
the biggest Canadian soccer star ever is Martine Sinclair. Like, by far, it's not even close. And she's brought more money into soccer in Canada than anybody else. If anything, the women's soccer team should have been paid double what the men's team was until they made the World Cup appearance.
I feel better about being a dad of two young grown women that did things they wanted to, and they had the support of their mom, my beautiful bright wife, Karen, and myself to do those things. And their opportunities should be there. There should never be any kind of second citizen sort of approach to things, that the way women have been treated for decades. So I'm just looking forward to the tournament. So we'll see, man.
Imagine this. Imagine sometime in the future, let's say we're 2050, and you've got two teams in the Tampa area. They're both sharing a stadium. You get to see one game, and then one day, the next day is the other team, right? Or one series is playing one half the week, the other series playing the other half the week. Like, how great would that be? Like, you're doubling the use of the facility and the opportunities to see, that sport as much as possible. It would be quite a thing. I think for a lot of sports, it actually improves the economics of it. So if you have a professional women's hockey team share an arena with a men's hockey team, who share an arena with a basketball team on the men's side and a basketball team on the women's side, you've got 4 teams sharing one facility. To me, that's great economics. I'm not a math whiz, but I think that would be quite beneficial to that stadium and the use of it, or arena.
Well, that's what a lot of them have been trying to do, or should have been doing long ago, is the multi-purpose. I know Stu's been talking about that for the longest time with the Rays, and we'll see what he gets out of it this time around with the new one. But yeah, I mean, in Louisville, where I grew up, you had a Kentucky Fairgrounds out there, and the University of Louisville used to play out there in their big expo area. It's one place you'd have cattle out there, walking across straw, and the next week you'd have guys cleaning all that up, putting down boards so they could play basketball. But it was multi-purpose. So the next week you have the ice capades.
Right.
But it was, yeah. So seeing a one-purpose facility doesn't make any sense anymore. And if you have opportunities to do something like that with having both the women and men's sports in the same place, why the heck not?
Exactly.
So, all right. Well, brother, what do you got else going on? You got anybody else you can rescue for us here?
No, I've been kind of monitoring things, trying to wrap my head around what the Rays are going to do in the offseason more than anything. I was shocked to hear they were in on Ohtani and had offered, apparently, Junior Caminero and 2 top 10 prospects. I thought that was a real eye-opener and kind of points to the fact that they were being extremely aggressive. So the first thing it says to me is they're not going to be shy about trading top prospects because they believe they're deep enough to do it. And that applies to this offseason where they have a glut of prospects moving up the chain, and they need to kind of every Rule 5 draft kind of puts the pressure on the Rays. So you're going to see a lot of movement, but it also puts them in the running, I think, for Shohei Ohtani for 2 reasons. One, he might be looking to rebuild value more than sign a long-term deal because of the arm issue, because of the health. So to me, if he looks around the league, there's maybe 6 or 7 teams that are really attractive in terms of being winners, having one big, huge season, and being able to kind of use that to catapult them to a huge deal afterwards, right?
Indeed.
So I think the Rays would be open to that short-term bang for the buck sort of deal.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to come from that mix. They're more fluid now, I think, than they would have been, 5 years ago. So right. I'm excited about that aspect because right now I've got to find other stuff to do. I really thought I was going to be watching the Rays at this point, but that was just high hopes, and I'm not going to not continue to cry in my beer anymore. Because there's no crying in baseball.
my shifting. This is where I love being a minor league guy, right? Because my thinking goes right to the Arizona Fall League. I've been enjoying watching Carson Williams highlights, and Shane Sasaki's playing there. Logan Workman is doing great. Austin Vernon as well. And then I'm waiting to hear from. I've been talking to the Perth Heat manager, Steven. And he's supposed to give me the list of players they're going to bring to Australia. Usually it's 5 to 7 players, depending on the year. And so you're going to get to see the ABL does a great job of actually showing, games on TV. And so, or I should say TV, it's like YouTube usually, or another similar network that you can get for free. So I'll be watching those games. And I got to enjoy Junior Caminero last year in the winter and saw him a ton, and how much he looked like a man among boys, even down there. So it was crazy watching him down there. And you got this, a real feel for what was coming for the year. So that's what I like about those, is that there are opportunities to see guys in different limelight. There's the Winter League in the Dominican Republic, which kind of, sometimes there's a few Rays in there, or guys that you think the Rays might be interested in. So that's what I've been doing, is kind of trying to reshape the roster to see how they can attack things next year. And I think, dreaming on things is part of the fun of the offseason. Like, could they get Pete Alonso, hometown boy? Can if they're looking for a second pitcher to have with Senga, is a Tyler Glasnow for Pete Alonso sort of deal, does that make sense with various pieces around it? There's a lot of different scenarios you can paint. I love having that fun. I'm wrong 90% of the time or more in the off season, but it's still great. They're part of what makes the off season fun for baseball fans, right?
And that's the way to go at it, my friend. No reason to sit in sorrow when you've got all that excitement. I know I was going to be looking to see what's going on in the Dominican leagues. I was so excited watching Rodney Linares last year in the World Baseball Classic and what he was doing with all those young people. It's the game continues above and beyond the postseason, and some of it right now. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you put on Twitter about that too, or X, whatever you want to call it. And you can find Matt at Matt MAT_Germain GERMAIN_. And that's where I find all my news. No, Matt, you do a great job. You dig deep, and you've got sources I can't even begin to believe. So thank you, man, once again for coming on today and sharing your insight about what's going on with this postseason and giving us a little flame of light to look far down the baseball tunnel for 2024.
Yeah, there's always something to look forward to. Always, always. Even when it's gloomy, there's always light at the end of the tunnel.
There you go, brother. Okay, thanks again, buddy. And I look forward to talking with you again real soon.
Sounds good, man. Thank you.
Sure enough. Special thanks to Matt Germain for joining us here today. Just remember, you can find Matt on Twitter at Matt, M-A-T, _Germain, Germain _. You can find me, Mark, at The Baseball Biz on Twitter. And you can also find me at Baseball Biz, www.baseballbizondeck.com, and anywhere you like on the directories, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, etc. So until next time, thanks again, and we look forward to talking with you again real soon. Special thanks to XAKRUX for the music, Rocky Forward.